Hello and welcome to Politics Up on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. Saturday, July 12th is the local government election in Lagos State, and today we are focusing on Eti-Osa local government ahead of the upcoming elections. And my guest today is one of the chairmanship candidates vying to lead this local government area. Is Ayo Adio, Youth Party chairmanship candidate for Eti-Osa local government. Hello, Ayo. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Dami. It's good to be here.
Yes, and let's start with the present issue of flooding, which disrupts daily life in Eti-Osa local government, especially during rainy season. So, if elected, what specific step will you take to address these environmental issues?
Well, the flooding issue is a perennial issue, and there's structural issues that you need to get in place for you to fix the long-term problem of flooding in Eti-Osa. Now, I'll start by saying that I think it's important to make clear that as a local government, we do not have the capability or the capacity to solve the structural issues that continuously lead to flooding in Lagos. That would have to be dealt with at the level of the state government because it involves things like adhering strictly or, in fact, implementing a wetland policy and adhering strictly to it would have to criminalize, indiscriminate dredging without the necessary environmental impact assessments. Would have to invest in dikes that sort of stops the huge flow of water in certain areas, and of course, invest in these huge pumps that pump out water from city centers, into the lagoon. So these are some of the things that that need to be done and taken care of at a state level that might be difficult for a local government to take on. But I can tell you, of course, I also have to add that the state must also be willing to enforce strict building codes to ensure that people are not building, on water channels or rights of way on canals and things like that. So you see that these are structural, systemic issues that have to be handled at the state level. But here's what the local government can do, and this is what I intend to do if I do get elected. And the first is that some of the problems that we have in places like Lekki, especially, is the fact that the drains aren't cleared regularly, and so you have sewage, and weed and all sorts of waste that have blocked these channels, stopping the free flow of water, which now leads to many of the floods, that you see. So at that level, we'll take on that primary responsibility of consistently, constantly clearing our drains in the most efficient manner so that we keep our gutters clean and flowing at every point in time. Another thing that we're also going to do at that level, is to implement an efficient waste management system that enables us to efficiently collect waste, to sort this waste, and to recycle this waste, such that people do not have to live in a pile of dirt for so long a time that they have no other option but to throw them in gutters. And obviously, these things lead to the prevalence of typhoid fever, as you know, in that particular environment. But even more importantly, is that as a local government that cares about its people, is that we're going to invest in emergency responses when these floodings happen. And that is one important aspect that has gone missing even at the state and federal level. We want to ensure that when these floodings happen and students are stranded and are unable to go to school, that we have a responsive local government that makes it very possible and moves in swiftly to help these kids get to school. When cars are stranded in the middle of these waters, or they get stuck in the middle of the mud, because of these floodings, we're able to support these vehicle owners to pull them out, you know, of these waters and provide the necessary support, that they need. So, in a nutshell, we're going to provide the kind of efficient emergency responses to support residents and businesses, when these floodings happen. Of course, as a local government, we're going to invest in green areas, and I'm talking about parks, water parks, planting of enough trees, doing the work that we can do to ensure that our environment is resilient and that we promote to a very large extent the local green economy. And that's what we're going to do at a local level.
Yeah, one of the things that many residents or visitors of Eti-Osa have complained about is the brown or contaminated water. So, what are like your long term or your immediate plan to provide the clean water for the people?
Well, again, unfortunately, I hear that I'm doing a bit of pushback, right? Because I'm trying to be honest. I don't want to be the candidate that makes, all of these highfalutin promises that has no basis whatsoever.
Hmm.
And when I do get elected and I'm able to deliver on these promises, the reality is the provision of clean water to the entire local government and perhaps to the state would have to be managed at a state level, usually from the Lagos State Water Corporation, which is controlled, obviously by the Lagos State government. And so we do not have the legal backing to be able to control the distribution of water to households across the local government. So it's clearly outside of our purview. And we obviously also do not have, the kinds of investments that are necessary to ensure that we build pipes that connects every home, ensure that the water is well clean, and it's consistently and effectively delivered to households. We don't have the kind of funding for that. In fact, even the Lagos state government had to rely on a World Bank fund, I think about 2 decades ago, that gave it millions of dollars to be able to invest in water systems and to be able to deliver water to every home. So we don't have, it's not within our purview to deliver that. Neither do we have, the legal framework that backs us to be able to deliver water, to the homes of people. So I would, humbly say that, while I have ideas of how the state can fix this, I do not think that's within the purview, of the local government. However, what concerns us is the quality of water that is used in public and commercial places for people who go to restaurants to eat, to hotels to eat, and for other business centers. Now, as a local government, it's our responsibility to ensure that the quality of water that are used, especially in hospitality concerns like restaurants, like I rightfully mentioned, meets the requisite health standard and does not lead to the breakdown, um, of persons, given uh, with conditions like typhoid fever and the likes, and cholera outbreaks and what have you. So to do that effectively, we're going to ensure that the health, the local health department is up and doing and is regularly interfacing with these businesses, monitoring them to ensure that it's the best quality of water that is used in these restaurants to be able to feed, the public. And to that extent, we're also going to work with them to help them with standardization and techniques that can help keep the water clean and make sure that the water is of top quality. And that's the extent to which I believe that we can contribute meaningfully in terms of ensuring that residents have access to clean and quality water.
Well, Eti-Osa is a very unique local government with both, high income neighborhoods and underserved communities. So, in the local government level, how do you plan to bridge the gap in order to ensure development reaches everyone, not just the privileged few?
I mean, that's a brilliant question that you have asked. And everywhere that I've been asked where I'm running, I keep saying, and sometimes people are shocked by my response when I say that I'm running because of the common man and not the rich and high and mighty in Eti-Osa. And I say that because it is true that there are hundreds of left behind communities in the Eti-Osa local government that despite the wealth that you see, despite the flamboyance, the glitz and the glamour, you have hundreds of thousands of people living in deplorable conditions, who are living in poor environments, with poor sanitation, with poor water supply, with high insecurity, with poor housing, and the list is endless. And to that extent, what I'm going to do is first, we'll invest in these low income communities by investing in the basic infrastructure that improves the quality of their lives. And this is, for instance, investing in inner roads that makes access in and out of these inner communities a lot more easier and a lot more faster. We're also going to invest and strengthen primary healthcare systems in many of these communities, and especially make critical investments in primary education in this community so that the children who go to these schools can have the same level of education in terms of quality and school outcomes with the kids from VGC and Ikoyi and Victoria Island. That's exactly what we're going to do and make sure that we channel those investments into those communities. Another thing that we're going to do is to invest heavily in human capital development because I believe that fundamentally nothing bridges the gap in inequality than human capital development. Once people have access to quality training, once people have access to quality education, you already put them on a platform and a pedestal that helps them leapfrog these disadvantages that the environment has presented to them and close the inequality gap. And so I can tell you for free that we're going to be investing heavily in social services, in basic infrastructure that improves the living conditions of the people in these low income communities, and investing heavily in human capital development so that they have the capacity and the capability to improve their living conditions. But more importantly, I would say this, that one of the biggest drivers of inequality is the way real estate investment happens in Eti-Osa. So what typically happens is this sort of grazing gentrification, wherein low income people in low income communities are ejected from their place of abode, where they have lived for hundreds of years in certain instances, and they are replaced with private developers who build expensive, shiny estates that many of them cannot afford. And so, what happens usually is that these people are chased out of this community and they are replaced with the rich and the mighty. Unfortunately, that's why you have a lot of young people roaming the streets in Eti-Osa today, and there's an increase in gang violence because the children or the young men who are being displaced from their homes have nowhere else to go, and they have to stay somewhere around this neighborhood where they have known all their lives, which then leads to the fact that a lot of people now on the streets of these local governments. So my way of solving this is to a very large extent engage with not just the state government where these approvals come from, but to also support these low income communities with the litigation process that helps them, reserve the rights and ownership to their land and their heritage, and to also help them to float municipal bonds that can help attract investments into these communities in a way that while these monies come in to raise the quality of buildings there, it also helps them preserve certain flats and certain buildings for people that are either indigenous to those communities or people who have had properties there for many years. So we're not built up, we're not pursuing development at the expense of low income people. We're pursuing a more inclusive kind of development that carries everyone, along. So that's the way I'm going to approach this huge inequality gap that is clearly evident, in this local government.
Let's talk about the election now. So, and we're just few days away from the election. How has the campaign trail been for you?
Well, it's been exciting, I must say. We've been engaging with market women, engaging with blue collar workers, we've been engaging with teachers, we've been engaging with business people. And it's been exciting, especially because people can see their challenges reflected in my policies and how I intend to address this. And the hope that they express in my candidacy is one that has been quite rewarding for me because nothing excites them more than me being able to carefully articulate the problems that they grapple with and provide solutions, in a way that is sort of a win-win for all stakeholders that are involved. And I think that's been the most rewarding part of this this journey and this experience. And we're continuing to knock on doors. In an hour or two from now, I'm going to be knocking on several doors around Lekki and Itedo. And we're going to be doing that because we have a target to knock on 30,000 doors before the election day. And hopefully that will encourage voter turnout and deliver victory for us at the polls on Saturday.
Well, Saturday is the big deal. So, what are your hopes for the election, and how prepared are you?
Well, I'm quite optimistic. I'm optimistic in the support and the love that I've been showed in every ward that I've visited, in every community that I've visited. And I'm optimistic that people will be coming out to vote for the vision which I've articulated, a vision that has proposed better investments in their communities, that have promised job creation and reducing the unemployment in this local government by 30%, that would deliver better security, that would deliver better infrastructure within our local communities, that will empower market women, that would help teachers improve their capabilities and deliver free transportation for them within this local government. That will put together a 5 billion creative fund for young creative who want to invest in the creative economy. That would raise the income of tourism businesses across the local government by 45% within the first 2 years. So I believe that people are excited about these policies, about these programs, and they can see the pragmatism with which I'm going to approach the implementation of these ideas. And I believe that they're going to come out on Saturday to vote for a new voice and a bold vision. I have no doubt about it.
Mm. Do you trust the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct a free and fair election on Saturday?
History doesn't support that the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission conducts free and fair elections. So um, there's no evidence to draw from that suggests that Saturday will be any different. Not the least in the way they have conducted themselves and their affairs in the last couple of months. I really and truly, have no confidence to waste on their abilities to conduct free and fair elections. But what we are going to do is to ensure that our votes count, to mobilize our people to the polling units, to ensure that victory is not snatched from us, and to ensure that a free and fair process transpires on that very election day. So I have no trust in them, but I have trust in the people, in my team, in my supporters to do what we can to compel the commission to create a level playing field on Saturday.
But what has your experience been so far with the process?
Well, it's been embarrassing, and in many instances, it's shambolic. It appears in very instances that the commission hasn't been prepared to conduct the elections, not to even talk of conducting a free and fair election. They have violated certain provisions in the Electoral Act. They have violated certain provisions in the Constitution of the Federal Republic. They have violated certain procedural issues and gone against their own guidelines in certain instances. And they have, in so many regards, put opposition parties at a disadvantage. So, I mean, our experience has been very unpleasant. It's been uninspiring. And again, that's one of the reasons for my candidacy to pursue electoral reforms at the local government level. And hopefully, um, we will do that, even after the elections to ensure that the process leading to elections are a lot more fair, transparent, and credible, that creates a level playing field for all parties to compete on a level playing field.
Right. Do you expect to see a lot of people turning out to vote on Saturday? Because there has been complaints on, especially on social media with people saying they are not really aware there's an election going on Saturday because of the very low publicity.
I mean, historically, voter turnout for local elections are usually abysmal. And it's gotten worse now because people have completely lost confidence and faith in the Electoral Commission of Lagos State, which is LISEC. And that has not helped because, when we try to convince people to come out and vote, you hear things like saying, oh, they have written the result already. Oh, this person is already going to be chairman. Oh, why are you wasting your time? So you can see that a lot of people have lost faith and confidence in the electoral process. And that, and that's why I tell people that I'm not really running against the APC, who are the incumbent. I'm running against voter apathy. And that voter apathy is primarily driven by the fact that people have lost confidence in the Electoral Commission to conduct free and fair elections, and people not believing that their votes will count at the end of the day. So I am not I don't. I'm not. I'm not hopeful that we're going to see a massive turnout on Saturday. That I don't think that will be the reality. It will be business as usual, where you would see trickles of people going to pockets of polling units to vote. And it's a shame that that is the case because that's the government that is closest to the people. But hopefully, some of the reforms that we're already championing now and the reforms that we're going to be championing the next few weeks after the elections will lead to a more credible process that will excite a lot more people and give a lot more people confidence in participating in the process.
Well, if you emerge victorious, what will be some of your priorities? Your major priorities the first 100 days.
My cardinal priority will be the environment. I would, put together a competent team that will access the environment, put together an efficient and an effective waste management plan that not only helps to keep our environment clean, resilient, and more attractive to grow tourism, but to also create jobs, to reduce health challenges, and to also create wealth for not just the local government, for the people. So the environment will be a major priority for me, after which would also be job creation. And that will mean my policy, which has to do with the huge investment in the human capital potential of the young people in this local government. So these two things will get right off my desk from the first day in office, where I'll be ensuring that we do all that we can to invest massively in human capital development and to turn around the environment in Eti-Osa.
So you're running under the youth party. What are your plans for the youth?
But again, clearly, the two plans that I have for young people in Eti-Osa, firstly, like I said to you earlier, is to invest in human capital development. They will have the skills and the capabilities that helps them climb the social ladder, grow their income, and live a decent livelihood. The second, obviously, is that I'm going to be putting together a 5 billion creative fund that young people who want to play in the creative economy can access those fundings to keep their dreams alive. Also, I'm going to invest in youth centers across this local government that is currently non-existent, where young people can participate in sports, can have access to a community library, and can have access to a creative center. That would be a priority for me, for this local government, because that's exactly what I want to use to combat the prevalence of drug abuse in this local government. Because once young people do not have a place to express themselves, to ease the tension, or to dissipate their energy, they usually end up, in gang violence and using drugs. And that's why I want to invest massively in youth centers, recreational hubs, creative centers, where young people can engage in sports, can engage, in creative adventures, and also have access to digital libraries that expands their minds and their worldview. So young people can look forward to a local government chairperson that will be investing in their future, and restoring that dignity that these politicians have stolen, that incompetent politicians have sought to destroy, over these years. And I'm going to give them back a future that is deserving, that is shiny, and that will be extremely rewarding for generations to come.
All right, let's talk about security at the grassroots. Security is a concern for many communities. What are the local strategies that you plan to introduce to Etiosa to make sure it's safe and peaceful for the residents and also visitors?
Well, for security, I must say that security is a community approach. You can't solve the security problem in Eti-Osa in isolation, and it has to be a community approach where all hands are on deck. Because the truth is, the security challenge that we face in Eti-Osa has several components, one of which is unemployment, one of which is gentrification, one of which is some sort of an unfair system where You have loads of workers who are working in an environment where they cannot afford to pay the rents there. So imagine the drivers, the cooks, the security men who work for the high income earners in Victoria Island, Ikoyi, and in Lekki. These people do not have or are not paid the kind of wage where they can afford to pay rent in many of these, places and these environments. So they end up residing in slums or have to sleep in their cars or on street corners. Now, what happens over time is that there is a tendency for many of these people to be lured into drugs and into all kind of unwholesome practices that then perpetuates the cycle of violence that you see, in this local government. So, in practical terms, what we're going to do is to invest in a 360 approach that deals with security, investing in the capabilities of young people and providing them an opportunity to climb the social ladder. The second, obviously, is investing in our local security architecture and working with the Lagos State Command to provide them with the resources and the equipment for them to be a lot more responsive to crime along and around the neighborhood. The third, obviously, is to integrate every stakeholder. I'm talking of CDAs, resident associations in that community, to see and say something, to be very watchful and put together policies at the community level where there is a clear chain of communication between residents, between the police, between the local government that share information and intelligence for us to be a lot more responsive, to crime. But ultimately, we have to nip it at the bud by stopping the free flood of young people onto the streets that is driven by unemployment, that is driven by gentrification, and that is driven by high inequality in this particular local government.
All right. Wish you good luck on Saturday, and we hope to hear from you after the election.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you for joining us. And Saturday, July 12th, is the local government election. Of course, people will be going out to vote. So vote smart and vote safe. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. Do want to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. You can also visit our website, www.vanguardngr.com. Enjoy the rest of your day.